InSight Systems, EDL.com.
Go ahead.
On InSight port. At this time, MRO will have loaded their electrosequences. Marco is expecting carrier lock at any time. Marco B is reported there in bent pipe. Still waiting on A.
Copy that. Thank you.
Radio Science report, UHF carrier detected.
EDL.com, Marco Alpha is in bent pipe mode. Marco Bravo has locked on the carrier. Marco Alpha has also locked on carrier.
System based on InSight Cord. As expected, the DSN has LOS for InSight Expand.
Copy that. Thank you. All station InSight Systems on InSight Core. DSN has lost the X-band signal from InSight, indicated expected cruise stage separation. Standing by for UHF signal acquisition via Marco or Radio Science.
We are about 5 minutes from entry and have confirmation we've lost the X-band signal from InSight. This was expected because we have transitioned from the antenna on the cruise stage to the UHF antenna on board the spacecraft. Ground stations have detected the UHF signal and Marco has locked on the signal. This confirms that InSight is transmitting UHF signals as expected. InSight telemetry through the Marco relay is not expected until about 2 minutes before entry.
So, Rob, that was exactly what we were hoping to hear, that the Marcos are
The vehicle
working.
has also performed the turn to entry maneuver. The vehicle is turning away from a sun-pointing attitude and oriented itself to enter the Martian atmosphere.
This is a big first step. Getting the cruise stage separated. It's now, after the vehicle turns itself to the right orientation, the cruise stage is now going to be get further and further away until it's about 3 or 4 football fields away, and will burn up in parallel as the vehicle enters Mars.
And Christine mentioned turn to entry. What does that mean?
Well, it's because the cruise stage has to be pushed off to one side. The rest of the vehicle has to turn to face the atmosphere and to be dead nuts on as it hits the top of the atmosphere.
So this is taking all the heat coming into the atmosphere.
Exactly. It'll be both provide a source of drag, but also thermal protection because it gets over 1,500 degrees Celsius on the top of on this heat shield. Very, very hot. But on the inside of the heat shield, it's maybe only a fraction of a few degrees above room temperature. So it's a wonderful protective device to keep our lander safe.
All right, so the next thing we're standing by for is
entry. Getting to the top of the atmosphere, gradually slowing down. Right now, the vehicle's just now beginning to, very soon, we'll be beginning to feel the atmosphere touching it. Actually, entry is above the atmosphere slightly, so it's really not until half a minute or so after entry before we start really detecting the fact that atmosphere is slowing us down.
All right, we'll be standing by.
Yes, exciting. InSight should now be experiencing the peak heating rate.
Portions of the heat shield may reach nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it protects the lander from the heating environment.
That's hot.
Marco Bravo shows carrier interruption, but still in lock.
InSight has passed through peak deceleration. Telemetry shows the spacecraft saw about 8 Gs.
Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo maintain lock.
Radio science reports carrier detected.
Yeah.
So, several different communications coming in.
InSight is now traveling at a velocity of 2,000 meters per second.
It seems to have passed this very critical point of peak heating and peak deceleration. The next big step is parachute inflation.
And you can see that on our timeline on the bottom of the screen. The next event is parachute deploy.
InSight is now traveling at 1,000 meters per second.
Very close.
Once InSight slows to about 400 meters per second, it will deploy its 12-meter diameter supersonic parachute. The parachute will deploy nominally at about Mach 1.7. Standing by for parachute deploy.
Radio science reports sudden change in Doppler.
Ground stations are observing signals consistent with parachute deploy.
Marco Alpha, Marco Bravo maintain lock status.
Telemetry shows parachute deployment. Radar powered on. Heat shield separation commanded.
This is really good news so far.
It's fantastic.
I'm on pins and needles.
We have radar activation where the radar is beginning to search for the ground. Once the radar locks on the ground and InSight is about 1 kilometer above the surface, the lander will separate from the backshell and begin terminal descent using its 12 descent engines. Altitude convergence, the radar has locked on the ground.
Yes.
Standing by for lander separation.
Carrier interruption on Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo.
Lander separation commanded. Altitude 600 meters. Gravity turn, altitude 400 meters.
We're getting there.
300 meters. 200 meters. 80 meters. 60 meters. 50 meters, constant velocity. 37 meters. 30 meters. 20 meters. 17 meters, standing by for touchdown. Touchdown confirmed.
This never gets old.
No, it doesn't, Rob. Control
what a
room
relief.
just erupted.